Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador, dear students, faculty members, dear guests. Welcome to ADA University. Welcome to our regular program, Baku Dialogues. We are very happy that we are hosting today a very distinguished panel and distinguished speakers. So we are going to get started as soon as some extra students will take seats. Well, as you remember, back in June, we started a new program called Baku Dialogues. And the idea was to bring distinguished global thinkers, accomplished practitioners, accomplished professionals from various fields to debate, to discuss issues of common concern, issues of common interest. And our first program was devoted to China, emergence of China, China as a powerhouse in the world, in our region, and implications for Azerbaijan. Today we have a different topic, but I think more interesting topic, and we have a very interesting panel, interesting speakers to address this topic. Today we decided to dedicate the second Baku Dialogues to the issue of development and entrepreneurship. How entrepreneurship affects development, how entrepreneurship can prosper in developing world, what are the mechanisms to stimulate entrepreneurships, and how what kind of opportunities are there in a developing world for entrepreneurs, for startups, for businessmen, for companies, etc. The world is changing. The developing world is catching up with developed world. Technology is affecting development issues. Technology is affecting our lives. And all of these things we will discuss today, and I hope that it will be stimulating and interesting debate and discussion for our students. Let me introduce our distinguished keynote speaker, and then I will also proceed to introduce our panelists and discussant. We are very honored that today our keynote speaker is Dr. Iqbal Quadir. He has traveled a long distance from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston to join us today. Let's welcome him. Dr. Iqbal Quadir is currently the chairman and the executive director of the Center for Innovation at MIT. This is the center which specifically focuses on research and teaching on the issues of entrepreneurship in a developing world. Well, he is a long-time champion of this issue, of the topic of entrepreneurship in a developing world. He himself has started his career as an entrepreneur. He established a various number of businesses in Bangladesh and other developing countries. He was the founder of a Grameen Phone, which is a very successful company. Well, he will talk about it in his speech. And now he's moved into academia, practicing, teaching and researching this issue of entrepreneurship in a developing world. He has been widely published, very prolific writer. He has been published in Economist, Financial Times, Forbes, New York Times, Harvard Business Review, Newsweek, all famous journals and magazines. He has been included in the list of 125 influential people and ideas, and I think this is worth to notice. And I also would like to say that just 1 week ago I read his recent article from Wall Street Journal. This is about his new business idea, Bitcoin, which he will talk about it. So this is the idea which is now widely supported by Bill Gates Foundation as well. Dr. Iqbal Quadir is a graduate of Wharton School at UPenn. He has finished both MBA and MA from Wharton School, as well as a bachelor degree from Swarthmore College. So please let's welcome him in Baku. And also I would like to use this opportunity and introduce our discussant today, because this is the subject which requires local perspective as well. So we are very honored that today our discussants are academician Dr. Professor Urhan Alekbarov. He is the rector of, as you know, he's the rector of Academy for Public Administration under the President of Republic of Azerbaijan, and he is a long-time champion and expert in the issues of development, author of Human Development Report, which is United Nations Publishing. He has been main author of this report for many years. We are also joined today by a businessman, practitioner, someone who can talk from a business perspective. This is Mr. Tahir Gözel. Currently, he is holding the position of CEO of Azersun company, so he will share his business ideas with us. And Ambassador Jack Maresca, he is the former diplomat, rector of University of Peace, and also he is coming from business sector as well, former senior vice president of oil company. So, without further ado, I will pass the floor to our keynote speaker, Dr. Iqbal Quadir.
Thank you for having me here. It's should I put this here? It's great to be in extraordinarily beautiful Baku and the cradle of civilization. But let me start by thanking Dr. Ismail Zadeh for inviting me. Dr. Pashayev, Jack Maresca has been really kind, and he has tolerated me for 15 years now and has been a mentor, and thanks to him to introduce my name here. So it's great to be here, and I just will start, and it's hopefully an informal conversation. Basically, my thoughts on Azerbaijan, on its tremendous potential given its history and its position in physical location, etc. But let me start with where I'm coming from. I'm, of course, right now I live in Massachusetts, and it's a small state in the United States, and it has only 6.5 million people. And the United States has about 320 million people. But there is something interesting about Massachusetts. And again, my view is that I would rather come from where I am and what it may have some insights for Azerbaijan. Now, Massachusetts, there's something interesting about Massachusetts. It is, its per capita income is 19% higher than California, and it's 27% higher than the rest of the United States. And why is that? One might wonder. And so, especially if you compare against California, it's more interesting because California 19% higher in Massachusetts. California has the Silicon Valley, it's a pretty big state, big powerful companies, and also have very, very prominent universities like Stanford, Berkeley, etc. But still, Massachusetts have higher per capita income. And of course, California also has much better weather than Massachusetts does. So one theory I have, the mystery can be resolved by the fact that California, which is 6 times bigger than Massachusetts in number of people, actually offers 2.5 times more bachelor's, master's, and PhDs. So while it has many prominent universities, we're not laughing at California by any means, but Massachusetts actually has greater intensity of education. And that has led to something. Because after all, those education, people come, pick up degrees at Massachusetts, and they come and go wherever they need to go. They go back to their foreign countries or their states. They're not all absorbed in Massachusetts. But something is done. The provision of education in Massachusetts leaves an impact on the state. This is something I'm trying to focus on. It's like if you open a restaurant, people come to eat. After they eat, they go to their homes. But there's a lot of cooking in the restaurant. And that cooking teaches the chefs how to cook better. And maybe they become better cooks simply because people come. And it creates a hub, and they go away, but it still leaves a good impact because those professors, they become maybe consultant or scientists, which are producing other things. So even if you see education for someone to come and pick it up and go, and that is fine. Still, the factory of the education gets improved in the process. This is an important point I want to make. Okay. And so, in other words, there are profound advantages in being a hub of ideas. And that's my first message to Azerbaijan. Simply because I live in Massachusetts, I thought this is an important point to make. Now, Azerbaijan is already a hub of ideas for thousands of years. And of course, people came here many centuries. But the point is, it has the potential of being a greater hub than it is perhaps today, and it can grow more. So that's what I wish to talk about. And then, of course, it can think, its leadership can think which direction to go in terms of being a hub of ideas. And of course, it is if we look at I'm getting a warning here that it's low in battery. But let's hope it lasts. Okay, so I have a wire, if we can cable it. So the point is, Azerbaijan is, if you look at just this history, this picture, just to imagine it, it has tremendous depth in history. And no, it's not, it wouldn't take that. Yeah. So you can see it has the history, it has the future, we are in between. We are also in the middle of West Asia and Europe. And of course, this place can become a hub through transportation network that is always existed and now being built more. Education hub it can become, trade and commerce, communication facilities, all these can contribute to, and it become a good hub of ideas. Now, among other things, what is important to note is that the creative ideas and creative people, the more you have, more it will attract ideas and creative people. It just feeds on itself, it reinforces itself. So the fact that you are in a strategically located place, and indeed culturally so rich, and so many people, the education facilities, and also a great educated population, all this potential is there, and if the government also throws in more resources, it can be that way. That many other countries cannot frankly pursue for lack of resources, or maybe they don't have enough education already built in the society. And all of that, Azerbaijan is well poised to absorb and invite and reinforce itself. But let me also point out something I know I grew up in Bangladesh, and yes, I learned a few things from Massachusetts, but my real education really comes from Bangladesh. And let me make a few points what I learned from that, and which is what I would say I would like to build on to make a few more comments. And Bangladesh is known to be a very low income country. It has twice the landmass of Azerbaijan, 15 times more people, 1/8 the GDP per capita, and 1/5 on a purchasing power basis. And people know that Bangladesh is very low income, and often people don't study what it is actually. So I wanted to show you a little bit of it, and you might see a little connection with Azerbaijan. And so I'll read a paragraph, or as part of a paragraph, from an American book, that Bangladeshis must never forget that by 1757, they were producing more than 1/3 of all cotton textile used in Europe, and had developed almost all the weaves of cotton and silk textiles known today. Indeed, in the 16th century, Bengal, which was the previous name of Bangladesh, was called the paradise of nation, the land of wealth, renowned for its agricultural surplus and manufacturing wealth. Then Dhaka, not Manchester, was the home of cotton, silk textiles, and Dhaka was able to dictate terms of trade when the Dutch, Portuguese, British, French came. As Bengalis had little need for European goods, but the Europeans wanted products from Bengal, the foreigners had to pay in cash. The reason I wanted to bring this up, not because of some national pride, but because it's a fact that many of us frankly do not know or do not think that is the case. What I wish to say is that Bangladesh has taught me that countries can go up or down. Nothing is static. You could be up one time, you could be down another time. And you could be down one time, you could be up another time. Okay. And because I know that Bangladesh is poor now, but at one time it wasn't. And frankly, the belonging to an empire of one or the other, in the case of Bangladesh, it's kind of, it can put you through a difficult situation. We have been in the Mughal Empire, we have been in the British Empire, and belonging to empires is costly, among other things. So let me then make a point also that low income is actually a stimulant for innovations. I liked what Fariz was saying, that let's hope we have a stimulating discussion. What I wish to show is that while low income means poverty or something, sometimes people think that, oh, this is a place for charity or something, but actually it's a stimulant for innovations. So, those 2 points, that countries can go up and down, let me also put further thought on that I have, at least I read history whenever I can. What I gather from that is that countries, that whatever circumstances happened, we can always connect that. But when the average person is diminished in some ways, then the countries usually decline. When the average person, it doesn't matter how much money you have or the country has or whatever, or how little money it may have, but when the average person does well, then the society as a whole picks up in all possible ways, in art, in culture, in many other ways. This is my overall read of history. So then let me show you how the low-income people is also a stimulant for innovation, because I was affected as a person, because I saw as a child that there were a lot of poverty in Bangladesh. A lot of people didn't have enough purchasing power. And indeed, as I'm saying, that we generally think that's the kind of situation where aid, charity, volunteer work, those things are what is necessary. And one of the key points I want to make is that actually those circumstances are a stimulant for innovations. So let me now take you to that point. So here is Johann Gutenberg. Gutenberg slashed the cost of book production by 100. Books were there before him. But he found a way, I mean, we know it as printing machines, but that produced books at a very low cost. Why? Because he could sell many more books. There were a lot more people who could afford his books at a lower cost than before. Here is Benjamin Day. When he started in the 1830s in America, the newspapers used to sell for 6 pennies. And he found a way to make it available for 1 penny. Innovated. And so that is another very prominent innovation. By the way, that's what gave rise to mass media. Benjamin Day suddenly producing newspapers at a very low cost. Henry Ford / before Henry Ford, cars were there. People saw them as luxury goods for rich people. But Henry Ford had at least tried to get it to average person. And he slashed the cost of book production by 10. And indeed, a lot of people got cars. Same thing goes again, I don't want to bore you. It's a very general pattern. Ray Kroc, in fact, he not only did not invent hamburgers, He did not even invent McDonald's store. He took it over from another group of people who created the two McDonald brothers. So here too, he slashed the cost of hamburger production, so to speak. So what did all these people do, really? They did not invent books, cars, hamburgers, or newspapers. They were serious slasher of costs. And that was a major innovation which we can discuss at length, which spurs the economy forward. Because a lot of people can buy these things, not only their lives improve, it releases resources for other things in society, which gives rise to other productions, other activities, and many other things that the economy spurs up. So, these people did not make money from the poor, they made money with the poor. So now, just one more example. Isaac Singer, he made these sewing machines available to people, which a normal quote-unquote poor person could sew clothes, sell it at a higher price. The combination of the person and the sewing machine became far more productive, and therefore could pay for the sewing machine. In fact, he invented an additional thing called consumer finance. So people could buy a sewing machine and pay it over time. You might call it microcredit today, but that's what a major innovation at that time. So these people, by the way, innovated, created innovations, improved, that created accountable businesses, price reduction, or many other effects take place. So it is not just history, by the way, through which radical cost reduction is going on. Even today, there are many examples. Same kind of things. So for example, Bridge International is providing excellent education in Kenya for kids where the parents are paying $3 to $5 a month. Much lower cost. Through IT and many other possibilities, these entrepreneurs have radically cut costs. This Big Cash, actually, I'm involved in this one. People are sending money over hundreds of miles for a few pennies. Another serious cost reduction. Here's an example of another very interesting innovation where people could be leasing equipment, a solar panel in particular, which can then which can allow, again, I can go into details if we need to, but again, it's a leasing company that is doing so at a very low cost. Here is an Indian hospital, Narayana Hospital, giving heart surgery for $1,000. Much cheaper than it's available, and very high quality, by the way. Okay. So, what I wish to also say, we're now living in a new era where many technologies, particularly IT technology, but there are many others, are giving rise to completely new possibilities in many ways, which can unleash many entrepreneurial young minds that are attending ADA today. Okay. So let me give you an example. Let's take cell phones. I mean, I happen to know this industry a little bit, and the cell phones have spread all over the world, not just in rich countries and poor countries. Actually, there is more or less a parity. You know, if you go to a rich country, there are beautiful, very nice roads. In poor countries, they don't have. In rich countries, they have good electricity. In poor countries, they don't necessarily have as much. But cell phone, there is a rough parity between rich countries and poor countries. And what I wish to say, why is that? This is just a cover story of an Economist magazine that says, indeed, this is like a miracle that has gone. But it's no miracle. It's just that these are tools, like the sewing machine, somebody can use and earn more and can pay for the phone service. And because somebody can pay for it, another person can create a company and provide the service. So a tool that makes people more productive unleashes all sorts of forces through which it can spread, and indeed its provision can be done profitably and done throughout the country. So this kind of model, new technologies can give rise to, and it creates a win-win-win model. The consumer wins because he's becoming more productive. The entrepreneur wins because he has a viable business. And the countries win because their economy moves forward. And this is actually happening. We can go into it more detail.
But also, even foreign countries win because they can export those tools, help the entrepreneur establish. There's another interesting phenomena about new technologies, that if you see the future, that a new wave coming, then you as a potential entrepreneur can plan on how do you surf on that wave. Because an entrepreneur cannot create a wave by himself. The wave has to come. So if you understand technologies, what are the new technologies happening? And I'm really glad to hear that from the rector that you are now focusing on IT and other new possibilities at the university. But the new possibilities allow an entrepreneur to see the wave coming and prepare his surfing strategy. It's also in developing countries, there are also a lot of first mover advantage. The landscape is not rich enough, all sorts of businesses are not taken, but new entrepreneur can have an advantage to go there and set himself up. It also creates a leapfrogging possibilities because a lot of things can skip over and people don't have to do it. So even today's, in the 20 years ago, fax machines suddenly spread. Now, hardly anybody uses fax machines. So you can skip over and send, let's say, a PDF attachment as opposed to having to fax something. And there's also, in low-income countries today, there is a tremendous youth advantage. The population is younger. And the younger people are better with these technologies. So that too is another very interesting, possible, favorable thing, that all these technologies, actually the younger people can handle them better. And indeed, that younger people are also available in those countries. But now I want to move to another point, that we think often from these great universities that we have much to teach to low-income countries. This I disagree actually. And so that if we are engaged in this kind of innovation hub, we have to incorporate that. At least this is my view. Because when I went to America as an 18-year-old, just like many of you, simply going in freshman year to study a long time ago. Now, and then I have learned the same thing. The developed countries have money, they have resources, they have knowledge. All of these should be spread now to developing countries. And they can only help. But we don't see is that the poor people can actually help the world, including the developed ones. One of the points I was trying to make through the innovations where Henry Ford or Gutenberg, what we missed there, that I want to remind, is that the existence of poor people compelled these people to think about how do I make it at a lower cost to reach to all these people. If they were all rich, honestly, these innovations would not have happened. The society would not have enjoyed the release of resources that were possible by creating things at a much lower cost. So low-income people actually are a very serious stimulant to innovations, because unless they push us towards that, we will be consuming greater amount of resources to get the same benefit. So low-income people are actually teachers. And that's the point I want to make now. So one of the things I learned, having come from Bangladesh, I was in New York and I started seeing Bangladeshis coming to New York and driving taxis. And I've been told all along that America needs to help Bangladesh because it doesn't have any resources, that we need to aid that country. What I learned, that Bangladeshis are crossing oceans, going over many countries, coming into the United States, and taking away some job. Driving taxis as an example. So far from them needing aid, they are quite eager, solver of problems, coming across the continent and trying to take jobs. So in other words, the drive to improve one's conditions is always there. If we are trying to provide a tool, then they will quickly grab that tool because it advances their life. That was a fundamental observation behind the cell phone project that Faris was mentioning, that I initiated. So what I'm trying to say, far from people seeking aid, they're actually seeking advancement of their lives, which is what these taxi drivers were doing. Okay, that were demonstrating to me. And then the other point is, as I was going back and forth, I was continuously told that poor countries need better food, better medicine, shelter, and all that. And I was going back and forth in the plane, and I could see people are immigrants coming from Bangladesh to Dubai or some other place. They need communication, okay? Because they're leaving their family behind. I could see that in the plane because I was sitting next to all these people who are going to work, okay? They need communication. That is another fundamental thing through which they could go and drive a taxi or sweep the streets or whatever, earn money and send money home, okay? So they, in their problem solving, they actually need communication. So what I'm trying to say, experts were telling me the wrong things sometimes, okay? So expert told me that when poor countries need a service, they need it at a very low cost or zero cost. And that too, a poor person taught me that that is not true. So I'll tell you a quick story. I'm nearly done. How much time do I have?
5 10 minutes.
Okay, good. So what happened is that I settled down to create a mobile telephone company in Bangladesh. And one time we had a maid in the house, and the maid asked me to mail a letter for her. And I said, please give me the letter, I'll put a stamp and mail it from outside. And she said, please don't put any stamp on it. I said, why? Why not? I'll happily put some stamp. And but she said, no, please don't put any stamp. And then I inquired, what is the problem? This is very weird. And she said, if you put a stamp, then it may not go to my mother because the mailman might throw it away somewhere or something. But if you don't put a stamp, then it gets registered, and the mailman has to then collect twice as much from the recipient, and he will actually deliver the letter. Okay. So what I realized, far from poor people seeking free service, okay, they actually want to pay twice as much. They just want a service, because no service is much more costly. And so again, this maid taught me that the mailman has to be made to go to the right place. And she would rather pay, her mother pay twice as much and get a service than them getting it free. So what I'm getting at is that too was contrary to what the experts told me. Okay. So every little thing like that, I learned from the actual living in the problem that is contradictory to what I was told from above. Okay. And people told me that that I should determine how many phones a village can take by looking at the GNP of that village. But actually, that's not true, because a poor person showed me that with a bicycle, he became more productive and he was able to pay. So the existing income did not really matter. It's rather providing a tool that enhances that person's ability to earn, and therefore they are able to pay. So now I just want to read a paragraph for you from Henry Ford, since we mentioned it. Okay. He says, I do not recall anyone who said that gasoline-based internal combustion engine, by the way, the cars were initially started out as electricity-based cars. We are now going back to that under certain circumstances. So at that time, they were worried that gasoline-based would never work. Okay, that gasoline-based internal combustion engine could ever have more than a limited use. All the wise people demonstrated conclusively that the engines could not compete with steam. By the way, the steam was another option. Okay, this is why the wise people, they know to a dot just why something cannot be done. They always know the limitations. That is why I never employ an expert in full bloom. If ever I wanted to kill opposition, by which he means competition, if I ever wanted to kill competition by unfair means, I would endow the opposition with experts. They would have so much more good advice that I could be sure that they would do little work. And this is another important reason that we need to participate in the actual problems. We cannot just be experts and tell people what to do. And how do we do that? So what I want to say is that we make our models in lofty places, and then the models gauge us. And how do we free ourselves? Low-income people do not know our models. We know our models. They don't know our models, so they push us to break our models. An entrepreneur's job is to break old models, to think about it in a new way. And this is why the low-income people, low-income countries, which is by and large the largest part of the world, is actually can be a good teacher to solving the future problems of the world. Now, the entrepreneurs must listen to the suffering of those people who do not do, and then create a custom-tailored solution. The sufferers provide the cues to innovation. Now, in order to creatively solve a problem, you need to participate. And I really think that I lived few years going back to Bangladesh, seeing all those things that I was talking about, the maid and the postman, whatever it is. I learned how to solve the problem, and that became a very critical part. So what I'm saying is we have to participate to innovate. So at least for ADA, what I would say, and this is what I've done at MIT, you take students from different countries, help them see what is possible, and they have to come from those places to see what might work, what might not. It cannot be done in isolation. And the problems themselves can teach the professors, the students, whatnot, to create better solutions. To conclude, the point is, you participate to innovate, and to innovate, you elevate. Elevate others, that's how you elevate yourselves. Not only in satisfaction, but in actual tangible terms. What I mean by this is that, let's say the Bangladesh mobile phone company that I initiated, now is, and I did that through solving the problem by asking the Norwegian telephone company, which took me years to convince. But the Norwegian telephone company now owns the company in Bangladesh, and indeed, hundreds of millions of dollars in profits go back to Norway. So even though Norway is a very rich country, and indeed it deserves to earn those dividends, it does earn the dividends, and I believe Norway today receives a lot more help from Bangladesh than the other way around. I mean, people may not want to hear this, but it's just a fact. It is true that Norway helped Bangladesh, but I believe Bangladesh has helped Norway, and is continuing to do so. And there's nothing wrong with it. I just think that kind of healthy relationship is what the world needs. It should not be one way, it should be two ways. And that creates a more stable and healthy give and take world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Iqbal Quadir. Thank you for this enlightening presentation. It's actually a very interesting concept that low-income societies, low-income communities are an opportunity for business. Because there's this joke that one person went to Africa and came back saying nobody is wearing shoes there, so we cannot sell shoes there. But the other businessman said, oh, nobody is wearing shoes, so there's a lot of opportunities to sell shoes. So you see low-income societies as an opportunity for entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship as an opportunity for development. But your presentation seemed quite optimistic for me because, you know, I have now in my head images of Syria, what's happening in conflict zone in Iraq, total destruction of world order. We see some developed societies entering chaos, entering conflicts and degradation. This, you know, your presentation seemed to me like a very magic key to success, and that you only need to turn on that magic solution and the world will become a better place. What do you think about this situation around the world? How much some societies are utilizing on this opportunity, and in other parts of the world we are still struggling with development issues? You can use the microphone.
Okay, I should answer right away?
Yeah, well, we'll start the discussion.
Well, I see, let me just give an analogy. the analogy is that let's think about our health. I am saying that can be healthy by, uh, by, let's say, good food, exercise, eating a lot of vegetables. This is the healthy way of making progress. That's how it's a long-term thing. But if, of course, if you do that, then you may not develop a serious disease. But when you have developed a serious disease, for whatever past reasons, perhaps you would not have developed this disease if you have done my regime, my food and exercise, etc. But for whatever mistakes or otherwise you have gotten the disease, then frankly, this slow-moving process may not work. Then you might need a quick operation. Okay. Then you might need other solutions. Those problems cannot be solved this way. But had you had these kind of things over the last 100 years, then you may not have had this problem in the first place. So I think I can only say through that analogy that my thing is not when you need an operation right after discovering cancer, but rather if you did these things, then you may not develop cancer in the first place.
Thank you. Now I'd like to turn the floor to academician Orhan Alekberov and ask Professor Alekberov the following question. You know, usually the poor countries, they are regarded as someone who needs to be helped, someone who needs assistance, volunteers, donors, humanitarian assistance, and usually it's from developed world coming to the developing world. This has been a traditional approach to developing countries. And you worked with United Nations for many years. You know how policy papers, policy recommendations are developed. Now Dr. Iqbal Quadir is coming with this new concept that instead of helping, maybe entrepreneurship and business opportunities and technology can be a real key to success, real solution. What do you think about this new approach? What do you think about humanitarian assistance versus entrepreneurship?
Thank you for your question, and first of all, thank you for invitation to Ambassador, Rector Hafiz Pashaev for on this discussion on this round table. I have to say that we Diplomatic Academy is really fantastic place for such kind of activities, and I'm very happy to see here young peoples who will drive our country and our world in future. Of course, if we're talking about the development is first based, as said the Professor Iqbal, on participation, involving, and initiative and knowledge. It's based on the human capital. It's based on knowledge. It's maybe traditional knowledge, which has come from the historically proven knowledge, and most modern knowledge. Only knowledge and human capital can provide with successes, both for poor countries and both for countries which is more succeeds in this. I would like to give you an example from the Azerbaijan, because you know the knowledge-based development and transferring the black gold, I mean the oil in human gold, the main concept which has been proposed by our president Ilham Aliyev in 2003. In 2003, and if you compare the results which achieved in this country from 2003 till today, you can see that your concept, that knowledge driving people, knowledge in management, knowledge in technology, knowledge in implementation. I wouldn't like to talk about increasing of the GDP. GDP increased more than 3 times, GDP per capita, 3.5 times during the last decade. It's good, and its highest results not only among the former Soviet Union countries, it's also highest results between OECD, G20 and G7. It's highest results. But about the knowledge-based development, I can provide you, I have some slides if I can demonstrate, because, and it's all figures which I use, it's figures from the international institution. It's UN data, World Bank data, ECIA data. It's not Azerbaijan statistic. We have such kind of indicator of sustainable development and development based on knowledge as GDP per unit energy used. How many you used energy for production GDP? It's very important indicator, because you know it's local problem, it's national problem, and it's global problem related with the climate change issue. In Azerbaijan, in 2003, Azerbaijan produced with 2.1 international dollar, I mean dollars with PPP, per energy, which equal to 1 kilogram of oil. Why a kilogram of oil taken as energy unit? Because price of oil same in all the world. It gives us possibility to compare the results. And production GDP in dollars, of course, on international dollars. In 2003, we produced $2.1 per energy, which equal to 1 kilogram oil. From economical point, it's good. You spend less than $1 and receive $2.1. In 2012, it's latest done data which published in 2000, it became 11.5. It increased more than 3.5 times. You know, you can think that maybe it's related with the oil production. Oil price is higher, energy not so much needed for oil production, and I compare the data from the different oil exporting countries. Last year, we became second from the top. This year, we became first. Last year, Norway was more effective than we. Now we more effective than Norway. And now producing per GDP of energy in Azerbaijan, it's highest among the oil exporting countries. And I have to say that different indicators also it's related with it's the energy which is needed for production of the GDP per which cost $1,000. It's different, same understanding, but and if you compare the countries, Caspian countries, you again see that Azerbaijan is first. He been in 2003 second from the end. Again, Turkmenistan was only worse than Azerbaijan, and now it's first. That's why, in my understanding, you know, it's absolutely knowledge-based development, and it's mean that it's knowledge in management, knowledge in entrepreneurship, and I have to say that how it's used for reduction of poverty. Poverty reduced in Azerbaijan from 94% to 5% now. And if you analyzed such kind of social indicators as Gini coefficient or quintile analysis results, you see that Azerbaijan more better situation than, of course, USA, United Kingdom, Spain, Italy, Greece, of course, Russia, and so on. But, well, little bit worse than the Norway, North European countries. I think it's absolutely, fully agree with you, only management. give such kind of results. And maybe I have no idea. I have 2 minutes. I would like to say why it's happened.
Urhan, we will come back to that.
Yes.
Because I also want to ask a question from Tahir Bey. But you know, this concept of poverty reduction, you mentioned that in Azerbaijan poverty has decreased from 54% to 5%. It was mainly done through state programs, through state investment. Is there a way to analyze how much of that was done through entrepreneurship, from private entrepreneurship? Because I understand that in Azerbaijan, most of the efforts were from state programs, not from private entrepreneurship.
You know, in my understanding, why we achieved so high results, not so far we had here, Baku International Humanitarian Forum, and 14 Nobel Prize winners took part in this very important event, and we discussed with them such kind of issues. In my understanding, of course, you know, what's the successes? You said about the private and state. In Azerbaijan, the policy which implemented in our country, and it's idea of our president, and again, innovative ideas, he's transferred the state programs in national programs, with participation of government, non-government institutions, and private sector. We are working together. That's why when we're talking about the private role of private sector, it's necessary to create a good condition for private sector. If you give such kind of opportunity to private sector, it's given, it's done. It's through the special loans which provide state and infrastructure. It's knowledge, possibility to do it. It's a lot of things, of course. That's why I think that not necessary to separate what it's doing. Okay. Government is doing private sector. It's national. We have to work together, and in our country, in my understanding, we achieved these results.
Okay, thank you, Urhan Bey. Now, Tahir Bey, I would like to ask you a question, because you are a practitioner, you are a businessman, successful businessman, and you are entrepreneur, meaning that you bring some new innovative ideas to Azerbaijani business sector. The things that Dr. Iqbal Quadir has been talking about, using entrepreneurship, using innovative ideas, startup projects to elevate poverty. Can you give us a couple of examples if it has worked in your practice in Azerbaijan? Has it? Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell us from your experience, how is it working in real practice?
Thank you very much. I greet everybody, Mr. Ambassador, everybody here. Great privilege to be here. Yes, very easy. One of the examples I can give is from the banking sector. There is a bank called Access Bank. They did a microcredit loan to very, very low-level income people. And they're one of the most profitable banks in the country, because apparently also as Azerbaijan Sanayi Bank, we never focus on that market, but the rate of loan return from low-end consumers is much higher than from the high-level income. And actually it's a very, very profitable sector. It's not our know-how, and we are very focused on our industry-based development. You can't be good at everything. Sometimes you have to leave back and let other people do. So that's one sector I can say. Now, in what did we do which was innovative, which was surprising to me? You know, as you know, I've been here before. I talked about my agricultural investment in the greenhouse. So the whole idea was that I will set up this large greenhouse complexes, and which is now developing, is growing. It's my own entrepreneurial input into this country. It's 20,000 square meter now, and it will be 400,000 next year. It's growing very healthy. We're competing with Turkey, with Iranians, we're competing with Russians, as Azerbaijan entrepreneurs to export into these markets. So it was all planned. But what thing was very interesting is when we set up what we call a propagation unit. This is where in the greenhouses, obviously before a tomato becomes a flower, you need from a seed to be a seedling, and we call that a propagation center, where it's called a nursery. So we set up this beautiful, very modern propagation center for our greenhouses, because obviously we need seedlings So we need a seed to change into a beautiful small plant. So we set up our propagation center. Obviously, the first target is large producers. Shall we go and find other people who want to put their seedlings with our propagation center? But then around our neighborhood, there were one or two small farmers, and they were shy, and they came and they went, and you know, as I encouraged my manager to say, let's go and meet them. And they said, you know, I have a small land here. Would you mind to have my seeds also propagated with you? And we said, sure. You know, let's just think about this. We were not sure, you know, we had our own doubts, but they said, you know what, let's do it. Let's do it for these two people. It was intention for charity. These are our neighbors. But what turned out to be quite interesting is we realized these people need more than just the seed and the service from us. Then we said, listen, why don't we come? You know, Volkswagen had an advertising. It says it can be your car, but it's our baby. We'll look after it all the life. That's what the advertisement said. We said, now this seedling is made by us. We have the reputation. Why don't we come and follow up the growth of this baby plant with you? And we will teach you how to do it. We will supervise you. Once we did with these 3 small farms, the next thing we know, 30 more people came. They said, you know what? Can we be your clients as well? We said, but listen, if you want to be our client, we have to give you a service. You have to pay a little bit extra, but we promise you that little extra is nothing compared to the productivity you will gain. And very simple ideas. We gave them very simple ideas. They were giving water to the plant at the wrong time. As simple as that. They were watering at the wrong time. They were mixing the fertilizers with the wrong degrees. Very simple knowledges. And this 10-20, in fact, right now in our propagation center, the small farmer community are becoming the largest profit-making segment that we're doing now. And it's a great joy also for us to be with them and to be participating in such a larger economy than 1 or 2 large producers. So these are 1 or 2 examples.
So there are actually practical examples where this concept is working.
Absolutely.
Now I'd like to turn to Ambassador Jack Maresca and ask him from international experience. This idea about using entrepreneurship and innovation in poverty reduction in developing countries, why is it such a common sense, but it still sounds like a new idea to us? Why has it been neglected or maybe underpaid attention in the global development programs?
Well, for one thing, we've tended to think of poor countries as countries that needed our help. And so there's been a tendency to send money. Whereas, in fact, and I think this is one of the lessons from Iqbal's presentation, these are areas where there are opportunities. Because there are poor people that need things. And the poor people, not only do they need things, but they're inventive in finding solutions to their needs. And there's another factor too, which we have now realized, and that is that economic growth rates from poor levels of economic development to higher levels are going to be much higher growth rates than they will be in countries that are already wealthy. And so what you're seeing now, I think, is a new generation which is taking advantage of new technologies, offering them in poor countries in order to take advantage of potentially high growth rates. And this is a new vision of the way the world can work, taking advantage of new ideas and taking advantage also of the energy and the inventiveness of people in poor societies. And it's proven in Bangladesh, it's been proven in Africa, it's been proven in many places. So the lesson has been learned, I think, by economists.
Thank you. Dr. Quadir, you mentioned that you are managing a center which is now teaching this concept. Could you give us a couple of examples of your alumni who went back to the real world and have done successful projects in different developing countries?
The program is on for about 6-7 years. We have had 200, and by the way, they are regular MIT students who are pursuing a normal degree program at MIT, but they associate themselves with us. We give them scholarships, we give them training, we give them various other facilities that help them.
there are examples of people leasing tractors in Tanzania. There are people who created a chain of diabetic clinics, which low-income people can avail information and medicines for managing their diabetes at a very low cost. In Mexico, we have examples of in India, where there's this big data research that can help retailers target customers. There's also an interesting cell phone based product which watches your behavior as your call patterns and whatnot. And if you have a depression as a problem, it can detect, watching your call pattern, that you might be depressed right now and calls your doctor. So there are many examples like this. There is another student have designed a drone. He's an aeronautical engineer to fly over agricultural land and assess the fertilizer needs of the land that it flies over, and saves a lot of money in terms of fertilizer to be applied. So there are just many ideas. We don't necessarily tell them what to pursue. They come with their own idea. That is the point I was trying to make, that often the problems trigger somebody in mind and he works on that. Mm-hmm. And so they come with half-baked ideas that they can go and bake that while they're at MIT, and we help them that mm-hmm. process. So generally it's that kind of examples.
So imagine a rural, poor community somewhere in India.
Right.
And one person has a very innovative idea.
Right.
Comes there and wants to do this business.
Right.
How would you avoid a stereotype that the local people will have, that this person came to make money on us?
Right.
Because I'm sure this problem
right.
exists. They always
right.
look
yeah.
at these people
right.
that they want to become rich at
right.
our expense.
That's
How
right.
do you avoid that kind of
miscommunication? It is a problem.
Yes.
But as Mr. Ghazal was saying, is that people, you did this to 30 people, then more people wanted to come. That is the solution, because people see a benefit in that, and they see that the benefit is much bigger than the cost that you charge them. Okay, and that's because they're combining their brain power and their labor with the tool you're providing, in this case seeds or something. Then they get a great multiplication of what they're paying for. And then soon it spreads like brush fire. So what I wish to say, the difference between a charitable way of looking at poor people and this approach that we are talking about, the big difference really is not seeing the power of labor and brain power of those other people, of the consumers. The interesting thing about the world is that everybody has a brain, and it's democratically distributed, by the way. Nobody has 2, nobody has 0, everybody has 1, okay? And that brain power is not being utilized often. So if you think they don't have the brain, then yes, you need charity, okay? But and then you're not leveraging a resource that's already there. Whereas if you see that resource is there, then all you need to do is how to trigger that resource in the right direction. And they're always eager to do, like Dr. Ghazal's customers, that they wish to come and embrace it. So then it spreads like brush fire.
And this is a relatively new concept in developing field. Do you find it difficult to convince stakeholders such as United Nations, governments, let's say big major transnational corporations, donor agencies, foundations? Do you find it difficult to change their way of thinking?
There is some difficulty, but it is not difficult to show it to the poor people. That part is easy actually. Okay, they grab it as they wish to, but as they see an improvement in their lives. But it is probably difficult.
So what kind of things do you do? Do you meet with policymakers?
When I get a chance, I try to tell them, and I come to forums like this and tell my experiences. Mm-hmm. But there's a paper you could Google and find out. They was talking about potable water, drinking water, and the title was called "Willing to Pay but unwilling to charge. Okay. What I'm trying to say is that people are willing to pay. You know why? Because I spend 1 rupee to get good water and I don't get sick and I can work and earn 100 rupees. So I'm happy to pay for that. But people who are set to provide that service, okay, because of whatever setup they have from other reasons, they're unwilling to charge, then that may not justify their existence. I don't know. But what I'm generally making one philosophical point, that the so-called poor people actually are pretty easy to convince. It's the rich people who are providing these things, I think are harder to convince.
In their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Burhan, you are rector of Academy of Public Administration.
Yes.
And this is the academy which trains policymakers, public administrators. How much do you like this new concept? How much should we incorporate that into our curriculums?
You know, it's included in our curricula, and I have to say that the knowledge-based development with human potential, development with sustainable development issues, it's it's part of our national policy. I provide you with such kind of example. You know, we absolutely priority of the 21st century is the sustainable development, which provide welfare for this generation and give possibility for development of future generations. And you know, knowledge in this field, training in this field is very important, and UN taking this fact in taking this necessity as fact. The UN and UNESCO announced 2005 and 2014 as decade on education on sustainable development, on sustainable human development. This document has been signed in New York 1st March 2005 by former Secretary General Kofi Annan and the former General Director of UNESCO Matsura. In Azerbaijan, which process started in 2000. The concept of why I am talking about, because our academy under the president and were directly working based on the government decisions also. In Azerbaijan, this process started 4 years early. In 2000, the concept approved by president, educational concept, included the sustainable development in the curricula of the general secondary schools, high schools, not tertiary schools. Because in tertiary schools, the subject taught early, but for general population and for general knowledge, it first started in Azerbaijan. In 2003, in Azerbaijan has been published first textbook for secondary schools on sustainable human development. UN headquarters, distributed this information as innovative action, as innovative ideas and actions through the world. That's why I think that all this is subject of our curriculums, and if we had not such kind of education, it's impossible. I provide you with some examples from the reports of the international organizations. If we have no correct managers who have knowledge in the development, in modern development, the country cannot reach such kind results, because we have chance for compare.
Do you want to comment?
Can I make a point? Yes. I mean, I'm just going to provoke you with a point. And I very much appreciate knowledge. I'm from a university. We produce knowledge. And I myself came from a poor country to the United States, went to the United States, and only through knowledge I did what I did manage to do. But one thing that does goes unappreciated, and a point I want to make, is that we don't appreciate how ignorance is helpful. Ignorance is very helpful. What happens is that when an entrepreneur sees something, that what Fariz was saying, that one man saw that Africans don't have shoes, and therefore there is no business. Another man sees Africans don't have shoes, therefore there is a great business. Okay, that interpretation of knowledge, seeing it differently, is what gives rise to many solutions. So if indeed knowledge could be spread, then any battle between a David and a Goliath would almost always win. The fact is, David sees things in a differently. Okay, that diversity of perspective and knowledge, okay, comes through a different people watching different things and proposing a different solution. Okay, and that struggle between different people is what produces knowledge. So what I'm saying is there is no knowledge out there which needs to fall on us and we all become perked up and work on accordingly, but rather the struggle against each other, okay,
and that shapes
can shapes the various perspectives and
knowledge.
gives rise to new knowledge and what works. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what would work.
Do you want to add, Dr. Mariska?
Yes, I would pick up on that too, because I think we are in a whole new era now. And the reason we're in a whole new era is because all of the technologies have changed. And what we found is that younger people understand these technologies better than older people. So that what you find is people leaving Harvard to go out and find companies that will affect the world, the way the world approaches things across the board. These ideas come from people who are not graduates of universities in many cases. And so one has to ask oneself, what is the relevance of our systems of education in an era when the people who abandon those systems of education, even the best ones like Harvard, are the ones who are innovating to meet new needs? I mean, this is the question before us as educators. Throughout the educational world, there is a process of internal review going on, informal, formal, whatever you want, because people have to question whether the old patterns of education are still sufficient for the new time. For example, I was rector of a university, as you know, in Costa Rica. I was always bothered by the long vacation times. We left, the school closed down at the beginning of June, and we didn't open again until halfway through September. I mean, how is this in step with the times when all the young people are in a hurry? And this was a complaint that came from the students. They would say, what are we going to do, during this time? So I think a lot of things need to be reviewed. And the new technologies are such that someone can come along with an idea, seize on the new technologies, and change the world. So in California, the motto is fail early and often. It's not go out and study forever. It's try things. And if they don't work, so what? Try something else. So I think there's a whole new perspective out there in terms of innovation and the way it fits with the new technologies which are available and the way you can affect the world.
Yeah, good point, because some of the best inventions of today, with Facebook and Microsoft and a few others, they came really from college dropouts and people without formal education, but very critical and analytical thinking. Well, we are approaching the end of our discussion, but I want to give the floor to our audience in case there are some questions or comments, please. And would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Chandru. I'm from Singapore. I run a shipyard here in Azerbaijan. I'd just like to beg to differ on the point about education. I mean, you talk about college dropouts. I mean, Bill Gates and all these people, in order for you to get into Harvard, you must be already a smart guy. Okay, whether you need the college degree or the diploma to proceed in life, it's two different things. Education is still important. You need to be educated, but more importantly, you need to know about people, how they react. And I tend to agree with Professor Iqbal, and to see, to do, and if you drop, and also with Dr. John, that if you drop, pick yourself up, try again. If you drop again, pick yourself up, drop, try again, and finally you'll succeed. Because if you try and try again, that's what life is about, you know. The thing about looking at opportunities from poor countries, I think I agree with most of what the panelists have said, that actually there is where the opportunity is. And I mean, in 1965, we got our independence from the British colony. Actually, it's 1959, we were part of Malaysia, and then we broke out in 1965, and we had nothing. And Singapore is now the second highest GDP per capita after Qatar. Qatar has gas. Singapore has nothing. We have only people, you know, and not many people, a few people. But what we saw is that everybody was poor in Singapore, and there were plenty of opportunities to create, to innovate. And just like Azerbaijan, the government helped us a lot, because they came out with the policies, and there I agree with Professor Ukran, who said the government must start, and let's not divide between private and their, because somebody have to start the thing. But if you start too much and you don't let the entrepreneurial skills come out, then the government will be always doing the work, you know, and that will result in a different kind of model. So in Singapore case, they started to tell people to be innovative, to be creative, you know, and some of our creative guys who came about and did great things like creative technology and all this, they were also university dropout. But in order for them to get into the university, they must be already smart, you know. So education is still important. I believe education is still important. So that's
Thank
my
you.
comment.
Thank you for this contribution. Any questions or comments? Raila Hanum, please.
Thank you very much for your very interesting talk today. And my question is maybe not directly related to the topic of your presentation, but as a person who is engaged from one side with innovations, from another side as a person from MIT and MIT area, could you offer, do you have any suggestion for us? Do you have any suggestion for us? For example, maybe it is very simple for you, but the question is very crucial for our city. How to avoid traffic around the universities? Like a person from MIT, and which is a very closest area of Harvard, I have never met any traffic around these universities. Traffic
jams. How to avoid traffic jams?
Yeah. And I have never
Any
met
creative
traffic.
ideas?
And if take into consideration amount of students at Harvard and MIT area, I never mentioned even, for example, Northern University or Tufts, which are all in Boston and Cambridge area. Do you have any innovative idea, or maybe an old idea, how to avoid this problem for Baku? Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Traffic jams. Okay. By the way, between Harvard and MIT, yeah, no. We take the subway. We take the underground to avoid the traffic jam. Okay, that's your concern. But the thing is, there is no easy solutions to these things. This depends on the state providing adequate highways and things like that. At least in Bangladesh, there are serious traffic jams all the time, extremely bad traffic jam. It of course shows the private sector is significantly trying to get ahead than the state sector has provided the infrastructures. But what I would like to add, it's not a serious part of the answer, but the mobile phone and the cash transactions that we now provide over the mobile phones are allowing people to work while they're sitting in the car and caught in the traffic jam and talking on the phone, and they're advancing while they're are caught in this. Okay.
So you are utilizing this problem for
the
business
telecom
idea.
companies are making money out of it because people are. But again, remember, they don't have to talk. They are making good use of their time when they're caught in the traffic jam. And indeed, our new service where you can transact money is also in that direction. But I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying there is some little escape. If you are caught in traffic, you can still be engaged with your community by phone, and it is indeed produces more revenues for the telephone company. But to be honest, the traffic jam problem is a state problem. It is not an individual entrepreneur cannot solve that problem. This is a problem that the state needs to solve. By the way, an important point is the entrepreneurial solution is not a solution to all things, all problems. Defense, healthcare, maybe many other things needs to be taken care of by the state. However, the entrepreneur can provide things and provide the economic means for the state to, tax the entrepreneur, tax the citizens who are earning more through the entrepreneurial growth, and thus enable the state to serve other things, including providing highways. So I think these are all kind of tied together. But entrepreneurs cannot necessarily solve all problems, that's for sure.
Yes, although, by the way, there are many now applications and programs that are developed by entrepreneurs to tell people where the traffic jams are, to avoid traffic jams. You can have a minute-by-minute update on road locations and things like that, restaurants nearby. So the app developers are responding to traffic jam problem very aggressively, and they're making millions of dollars on that. So yes. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
My name is Pana, and I'm studying business administration at ADA University. My question is about, for example, we have this new, a lot of startups, like online payment systems, online services, and so on. But I see that they are not that much getting popular in Azerbaijan. Is it that businesses cannot change their culture, or is it that culture needs to change itself and then businesses will succeed? Thank you.
Well, I personally don't think, again, this is just my personal view, people get confused about what comes first. I don't think that people always will say, oh, this is not going to work in this culture. Okay, I personally disagree with that. The reason is, although these are interactive things, we are all interacting in some way of society. So culture affects business, business affects culture. But what we need to see is that the technology, which is obviously not culture, is a tangible, economic, physical thing, impacts on the culture, not the other way around. Okay, internet has changed the American culture. Cell phone has changed our culture, how we behave. So I think and also what I wish to say is that if you say our culture is not allowing this, then honestly you don't know what knob to turn. How can we change it? You cannot just go around and change somebody's culture. Okay, so what you can do, on the other hand, technologies is a knob that you can turn, or introduction of a product that you can do. Okay, so if you look at all the social media, communication devices, various highways, all these things have changed culture, or even economic activities. So, and those are the knobs that you can actually turn. So my view is an entrepreneur simply capitalizes on an existing social problem and tries to find a way to monetize that problem into a solution, monetize a solution which can benefit the people and benefit himself. Okay, then that's how the two interests come together. And then when you have done that, then people behave slightly differently and the culture gets moving. So one thing to keep in mind, just to think clearly, I don't think culture is a hindrance to entrepreneurship, but rather, under the current circumstances, you might find a solution that might set in motion a change in culture. And I think that's what has happened. Thank you. Yeah.
And also my own as an entrepreneur, thank you very much. My own as an entrepreneur feedback to you. What you should all know, if you want to be an entrepreneur, whatever you have studied is useless. A university graduate and a non-university graduate is equal if you want to be an entrepreneur. If you want to be a corporate manager, it makes a difference. Now, my answer to you is, you have to be an entrepreneur is very realistic. Very realistic. Extraordinarily realistic. You look at your market size, you want to open an online payment system. Who are your customers? What is the market size? What is an equal country to Azerbaijan? You take an example of, let's say you par, let's say Romania, or it's too much advanced, you find Kazakhstan. You study what is the rate of penetration of payment via online system. What is the rate? Then you understand that